I was living in Madison, Wisconsin. I was probably about 35 years old, and I had this, I thought, a great idea. I would walk up to people and say, "What's the worst job you ever had?" And I had a lot of experience by this time, so I kind of consider myself an expert in the subject. So the very first person I asked was my grandmother, Gladys O'Brien. Greatest person I've ever known, 85 years old at the time. All I knew about my grandma, she worked at a nursing home, and she worked at the Hotel Racine behind the candy and cigarette counter. And she said, "Now, why would you ask me a question like that? Every job I had was pretty good. It was fine with me. In fact, I had to work. My husband died young. He was 35 years old. He was a railroad man, a brakeman. And he used to travel all across the country, and he would call me long distance. He had a beautiful Irish tenor, and he would sing that silver-haired daddy of mine. Oh, I love that." But you know, I did work at Alice Chalmers' factory in Milwaukee. I swung a 2.5-pound hammer, 10 hours a day, 2 years, 6 days a week. Lots of women had to do that. All the men were away at war, so the women had to take the men's job. It was hard work, but you know, we had a good time. After work, we'd go out, have some drinks, have some highballs, play some cards. I still like highballs, you know. It's important to have fun with the people you work with, but don't be too tight with the people. Don't be too tight with your money, because there was this guy. We said he was so tight with his money that he wouldn't spend the money to change the battery in his pacemaker, and he would get a heart attack, and you know what? I really think that's the way he died. As to your question, though, what's the worst job I ever had? Well, there was one job I wasn't so crazy about. I worked at Crom's department store in Antigo, 1945 or so to 1951. Oh, I didn't like those owners, the Croms. No, I didn't like them one bit. They were such pills. Abe and Fay Crom. Abe was mean and he was dumb. He did everything mean that could be done. And his wife, Fay, she was no prize plum either. Anything go wrong, she'd raise the dickens. Oh, we just didn't have a bit of fun. But you know what? They weren't all that bad, really, sometimes. Because at Christmas, they throw a big party for all of us workers at the department store, and they lay out all the bubble gum we could eat and all the liquor we could chew, all the liquor we could drink. In fact, that liquor you could almost chew it back then. And I saw this picture of my grandma years later, and she was standing on a street in Milwaukee. And she was probably about 35, and she had a long black trench coat and a black hat and these really thick, round sunglasses. And all of her friends were around her laughing, and she had a very wry grin on her face. And I thought, she's really kind of a badass then. And actually, I thought she was kind of like John Lee Hooker. But you know, every once in a while, the Crowns would leave town. They'd go away for a couple hours. And as soon as their Cadillac crossed the city limit, I'd get a call from Irene Skalecki, and she would say, "What time does the show begin today, Gladys?" And I would say, "At 2. Then we'd start dressing up Merle the custodian in all these fancy women's clothes. Oh, we draped this big dress from 1900 with lacy sleeves. We put these shoes on him that buckled up just over his ankles. He had a feather boa around his neck and this big black hat topped off with a feather. Now Merle was kind of tall and skinny, and so that the dress hung on him like a scarecrow. And he had these big round eyeglasses. He had almost no hair, but I remember he had really good teeth. So all of a sudden the word would spread around town. The show was about to begin. Everybody would crowd into Crom's department store, and I'd pull out this little toy xylophone. Everybody was waiting around. Merle would be standing there in those clothes, stock still, and he always had this sad and sober look, as if he was like Buster Keaton, except when he got in those women's clothes. Then he got real happy. So I would start playing the xylophone. Merle would start prancing all over the store, kicking his legs up in the air as if he was really somebody, his head way up high. People were hooting and hollering. He'd come by me and he'd say, "Play faster, Gladys." And I start playing faster. Oh, we would be laughing. Everybody would be having such a good time. Oh, we had good times back then, I'm telling you. It went on, and all of a sudden I get a call from Irene Skalecki, and she would say, "Ma and Pal Kettle are back in town. Put everything away." Merle would get out of those clothes. Everybody be acting like they're just shopping. This show went on for a good 4 or 5 years. Abe and Faye Crom never were the wiser. I always tried to get Lucy, Merle's wife, to come down and see the show. And she would say, "Now, why would I go down and see some kind of foolishness? I see this kind of craziness at home. I'm not going to go down." I said, "Yeah, but Lucy, everybody has so much fun. They're laughing." And she said, "I have the comics page to make me laugh." She was always so mad about it. Finally, one day, Lucy came down to see Merle's show. She laughed so hard, I don't think I ever seen her have so much fun. She said to me, "I didn't think the guy had it in him. I guess an old dog can learn a new trick every once in a while." She never said a bad word about it. But you know, you gotta have some good times. You gotta laugh in life, or the good Lord's gonna take you early. I know that's true. You should listen to me then. That is one thing I know that's true.